The Supreme Court just declined to hear Donald Trump's appeal of a multi-million-dollar verdict in the Ejean-Carroll sexual abuse and defamation case, effectively closing the book on one of the most unusual legal sagas in recent memory. How did a magazine column accusing a public figure of an event decades prior escalate into two separate federal trials, unprecedented jury awards, and a definitive statement from the nation's highest court? This wasn't a criminal prosecution, but a civil action built on deeply personal allegations and public denials. We're going to trace this remarkable legal journey from an unproven allegation in a bookstore to a final decision that could redefine the boundaries of defamation and accountability in 2026. On June 29, 2026, the United States Supreme Court announced its refusal to hear Donald Trump's appeal of a $5 million jury verdict. This decision, made without noted dissent, effectively solidified the financial judgment against the former president in the sexual abuse and defamation case brought by journalist Ejean-Carroll. This significant ruling followed a petition for review submitted by Trump's legal team in November, marking the culmination of a legal journey that began in 2022. It's a case that didn't just make headlines. It fundamentally tested the boundaries of defamation law and accountability for public figures. At its core, this intricate legal battle originated from accusations first made by Ejean-Carroll, a former columnist for Elle magazine. Carroll alleged that Donald Trump sexually assaulted her in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room in late 1995 or early 1996. These claims were publicly detailed in her 2019 memoir, What Do We Need Men For? A Modest Proposal, with an excerpt published in New York Magazine's The Cut. The public reaction to these accusations, and Trump's subsequent public statements, set the stage for a protracted legal conflict in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, presided over by Judge Lewis A. Kaplan. This case would ultimately involve two distinct civil lawsuits, each building upon the other, and each meticulously examining the legal definitions of sexual assault, defamation, and the responsibilities of public discourse. We'll trace the progression of these lawsuits, from Carroll's initial filings through the trials, the verdicts, and the profound legal implications that continue to resonate today. The public accusation against Donald Trump emerged with stark detail in mid-2019, leveled by Ejean-Carroll, a celebrated former columnist for Elle magazine. Her harrowing claims, alleging a sexual assault by Trump in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room sometime in late 1995 or early 1996, were first unveiled in an excerpt from her powerful memoir, What Do We Need Men For? A Modest Proposal. This gripping excerpt was published by New York Magazine's The Cut on June 21, 2019, immediately drawing national attention. Upon these serious allegations becoming public, Donald Trump, then occupying the Oval Office as President of the United States, vehemently denied them. He famously retorted, "She's not my type," and later claimed, "I know nothing about this person," remarks that would prove pivotal in subsequent legal battles. These swift and public denials by Trump immediately prompted Carroll to assert defamation, arguing that his dismissive statements had significantly damaged her professional reputation and personal standing. This immediate, high-stakes public back-and-forth between a respected journalist with decades of bylines and the sitting president inexorably set the stage for two significant civil lawsuits in federal court. Ejean-Carroll, a former Elle magazine columnist, publicly accused Donald Trump in mid-2019 of sexually assaulting her in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room in late 1995 or early 1996. Her claims were first published in an excerpt from her memoir in New York Magazine's The Cut in June 2019, sparking a complex legal journey. Carroll filed two civil lawsuits against Trump in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, both overseen by Judge Lewis A. Kaplan. The first case, Carroll I. 20 CV 07311, was initiated in November 2019, alleging defamation following Trump's public denials. A second lawsuit, filed in November 2022, brought claims of sexual abuse under New York's Adult Survivors Act, which temporarily lifted the statute of limitations for past assaults, alongside additional defamation allegations. This dual approach allowed Carroll to seek damages for both the alleged assault and the subsequent harm to her reputation from Trump's statements. Judge Kaplan's management of these intertwined cases proved pivotal, setting procedural precedents en route to a groundbreaking $5 million verdict. In May 2023, the second of Ejean-Carroll's federal lawsuits, colloquially known as Carroll II, reached its dramatic conclusion with a landmark verdict from a Manhattan jury. Presided over by the meticulous U.S. District Judge Lewis A. Kaplan, this trial delved into Carroll's allegations from the mid-1990s. The 9-person jury deliberated swiftly, ultimately finding Donald Trump liable for sexually abusing Carroll, specifically battery, and for defaming her with disparaging statements made in October 2022, which included calling her a whack job. Carroll was awarded a substantial $5 million in civil damages, $2 million allocated for the sexual abuse, and an additional $3 million for the defamation. This verdict marked an unprecedented moment in American jurisprudence, as it was the first instance a former U.S. president was found civilly responsible for sexual battery. The outcome garnered immense national and international attention, finally bringing Carroll's decades-old account to a definitive public judgment. Post-verdict, Trump's legal team, led by attorney Alina Habba, promptly initiated a series of appeals, vehemently challenging the jury's factual findings and the significant financial award. Following the May 2023 verdict, where a Manhattan jury found Donald Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation, awarding Ejean-Carroll $5 million, Trump's legal team, led by attorney Alina Habba, swiftly initiated a robust appeal process, intent on overturning the judgment. This began with a formal petition for review submitted to the Supreme Court in November, which sought to challenge both the sexual abuse liability, stemming from the alleged 1990s incident in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room, and the subsequent defamation claims that the lower court had affirmed. This was far from a swift process. Court records indicate multiple rescheduled conferences concerning the petition for review. For instance, the conference originally slated for late December was pushed to January, then again to February. Each rescheduling underscored the profound complexity of the legal arguments and the Supreme Court's methodical, deliberate approach to such a politically charged and significant case. Ultimately, this extensive appeal process, meticulously documented in public filings, highlighted Trump's unwavering determination to contest the verdict at every available legal level, from the initial district court proceedings to the appellate division, and ultimately to the highest court in the land, leading to the Supreme Court's final determination. On Monday, June 29, 2026, the United States Supreme Court issued a pivotal decision, declining to review former President Donald Trump's appeal of the $5 million jury verdict rendered in the Ejean-Carroll civil battery and defamation case. This refusal, reached without any publicly noted dissents from justices such as Clarence Thomas or Sonia Sotomayor, effectively cemented the May 2023 federal court judgment that emerged from the Southern District of New York. The Supreme Court's action meant that the jury's explicit findings, that Trump was legally liable for sexually abusing and defaming Ejean-Carroll under New York's Adult Survivors Act, along with the specific $5 million in awarded monetary damages, became definitively final. This landmark ruling, extensively reported by major news organizations including the New York Times, CNN, and NBC News, solidified a critical and long-awaited legal victory for Ms. Carroll after nearly 5 years of contentious litigation. The Supreme Court's refusal brought a definitive end to this particular chapter of the complex case, Ejeancarroll v. Donald Trump, confirming the lower court's findings beyond further appeal. This video presents publicly documented information. It is for educational purposes, not legal advice. The trajectory of the Ejeancarroll v. Donald Trump cases, culminating in the Supreme Court's decision on June 29, 2026, illustrates the profound weight the judicial system places on accountability, even when faced with significant public attention and powerful individuals. What began as a personal accusation in a magazine column ultimately navigated complex legal pathways, affirming the ability of an individual's voice to catalyze a multi-million-dollar verdict that withstood appellate challenges. This case, particularly the standing of the $5 million jury award, underscores the law's capacity to address serious allegations through meticulous evidence presentation and careful deliberation, ultimately reinforcing the principle that no one is above the legal process. Considering the extensive legal maneuvers and public discourse surrounding these trials, have you observed other instances where a private accusation, initially doubted, ultimately led to significant legal precedent or judicial affirmation? Share your thoughts and any relevant cases you recall in the comments below. To continue navigating these complex legal narratives with a factual and measured approach, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you found this breakdown insightful, I encourage you to watch my detailed analysis of the landmark New York Times Co. v. Sullivan case, which fundamentally shaped defamation law in the United States. This video presents publicly documented information. It is for educational purposes, not legal advice.